Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm back on my Just Because piece. You know, when you're in the middle of a heap of big projects and you're sort of either waiting for the next prompt to come along or waiting for inspiration on something, or you really want to start another piece, big project, but you've got too many big projects on the go, but you need something to stitch. So I can't have an evening where I don't have something in my hand to stitch, and that's how this piece came along. It's just because I had some scraps left over from the Wave of Colour Roxy Creation Volume 3 piece, Down the Garden Path. These little bits and pieces that came from a pillow slip. You know, when you buy that decorative pillow that you see in those linen stores that is heavily embroidered, this one caught my eye. So if you are looking for them, it is a Morgan and Finch pillow slip. This is the other part of it that I didn't end up needing it because it was double-sided. So I've got plenty here that I can chop into, fussy cut it out and use it in future pieces. So it's a Morgan and Finch pillow slip. It is in a shop in Australia. It's either Bed and Bath or Bath and Bed. I can never remember the name of that business. The link is below in the description because I've had a few people ask me about it, so that they could track down that pillow slip. It's a beauty. I can't wait till it ends up one day in all of the op shops. Probably 5 years from now, there'll be a flood of this heavily embroidered pillow slips in the op shops, and they're just going to be like gold, I think. In the meantime, we've got to pay retail price for them. But when you're cutting out little pieces, you know, they're pretty good value. I'm getting sidetracked. What I've been doing is I've stitched down everything. So it's not going anywhere. Everything is completely secured. And I mentioned in the last video that I'll start seed stitching right through the entire centre, which I have. So there was one evening where I just meandered down this side, started coming across over her head. I sort of go wherever to start with, and then I have little pockets that I can come back, and it just doesn't feel as daunting of a project when you break it down into little pieces. So I'll just come up, because as you know, seed stitch is tiny, takes hours, but you know, if you've got a movie that you actually want to look at the screen and actually get into the story, it's a really good stitch to pick up and do, because you're sort of concentrating, but you're not. Not like if you're working a flower and you were like really wanting to, you know, be aware of your design elements. So this morning, the plan was to sit in the sun and do more seed stitch. And I did a little bit. I started working in through here. So as you can see, I've cut out the pillow slip elements, and you can see a distinctive line where they all lay, and that's all been hand stitched down, so it's not going anywhere. Now up through here, I've started the seed stitch process, and as you can see, that line just disappears. So now the background and the surrounding of the embroidery become one. So I can highly recommend seed stitch to melt your layers together if you're up for hours and hours of stitching. But yeah, it just really makes the work look good. Like, you wouldn't think that those leaves there have been cut out. And even around here, you could see that the leaf was just floating there on the crocheted background. So I've seed stitched around it, and it just melts everything together. See under the bird there, you can still see that sharp edge. So I'll seed stitch right around that little bird. And because it's an ecru colour like the crocheted element, it just all blends. So it really makes your work come together and melts it together. So while I was in here, I started thinking about these flowers. And I sort of lost interest in seed stitch, and I started working on a flower. The plan was to do a video maybe in the next day or so once I had a bit more seed stitch done. But I picked up my sequins and beads and threads and started popping them all around my chair. And within a minute or two, I had this centre done on this flower. And I thought, hang on, girl, just slow down. So I thought, I better get back in here and we nut out these flowers, because I sort of have a bit of a plan. That way, if I get sick of seed stitch, I can carry on with some flowers, because there's a lot of work just in here alone. So that's why I'm here. First of all, the centres of the flowers. I did decide to put some gold seed beads in there, and I stacked them. Now, what I mean by stacking the beads, I wanted a raised look, because when you look at the artwork here that the designers created, they've really given a three-dimensional feel. Now, you could do pistol stitch with French knots on here. You can do just French knots, colonial knots, but I felt like I needed something a little bit more dimensional, so out come the beads. Then when I started throwing down the one individual little bead, I felt like it was still flat, and I wanted that. See the edge of it? It's quite high. So I was picking up 2 to 3 beads at a time in random places and just stitching them straight down, and they're actually stacking on top of each other. I hope that makes sense. Normally, if I had 3 beads or 2 beads, they'd lay flat on them. I'd stitch through them, over them, make them nice and secure, and it would still be all one level. But in this case, I wanted them to sort of jiggle and stick around, sitting on top of each other. I hope that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but anyway, it's a really cool way of getting a little bit of height, especially if you've got some of these types of flowers that the artist wants it to look like you're looking into the flower, especially this one here. You can see how even with the white strokes of white there, it makes that petal feel quite round as you look down into the center. So this will be another one that'll need a stacked center. So anyway, what have I got here in my desk? I really want to make this feel quite textured and dimensional. So I've grabbed my container of pink. I think there'll be plenty of colours here that suit. I've gone for the crocheted cotton because it's just a little bit thicker than stranded cotton. And I feel like there's little pearlized ones, there's variegated, some really old vintagey ones. So there'll be all sorts in here that should match the piece. As you can see, that there is really that there. So I shouldn't have to go too far. I have also grabbed some eyelash yarn. Now this is getting harder to find for some reason, unless it's back in the shops, but for the last year and a half it's been really hard to find. So I've been picking it up wherever I can in op shops. So whether the manufacturers in China are just thinking we're over eyelash yarn and it's no longer on trend, possibly, or it's just the case of the Spotlight and the big guys are just not wanting to stock it. So if you do see this around, it's a fantastic element for creating, once again, texture. Now, what I thought I might do, whether this is the right flower, probably not, but stitching in to the center of a flower some eyelash yarn. That's not the right flower. I think this one might be. So it's a little bit darker, and there's sections here. Yeah, see, that's a better match right there. And then the beads would go in and you'd have all these little fibres in the centre of your flower that would make it feel quite textured. Now, the other thing I grabbed is when I pulled this mess out, this come out. And I thought, well, that's got potential too. Now, this flower is, I think, a carnation. And you know how carnations have that really fluted, soft edge? There's another one there. Excuse me. And I thought sections of this stitched in, just little bits, might help me build up. See, that colour there is perfect. Might help me build up the feeling that that is layers of things. Just little bits of it. Yeah, I really like how I curved that, and it just became quite feathery. Let me just zoom that in. Like that magenta colour there alone. So I put my finger on it just then and I curved it. Look at that. So it's splayed out like an eyelash. So little bits of it in there. It will be fiddly. Little bits in there I think would be beautiful. So I would probably find a colour. Gosh, my throat. I've had a bit of a flu and it's just never really developed into anything major, but it's just hanging around. Yeah, see what I do with this, let's just do it, because I want to do a little bit of a few so that I can keep moving forward, but I don't want to get to a point where I've moved so far ahead that all I'm doing is trying to verbalize what I did, because that's really hard to see, you know, for you guys to know what the hell I was trying to do. So I thought I'm just going to throw all my bits on the table and have a little stitch in each little spot, and that'll set me up for moving forward. Oh my goodness, excuse me guys. Oh goodness me. I think you can probably hear it in my voice. So what I'm thinking of doing is we'll start at the back here. Oops. When you've got something that's heavily layered like that, you need to start at the back or the outer edge and work your way into the center so you get the layered feel. If you were to start in here with this guy, it'd be very hard to make this guy look like he was behind this one. And then it's even harder here and even harder here. Now, being that there's a little guy at the back here, let's just get him stitched. And we're going to need probably a couple pinks. So I'm just going to lay down some, technically it could be satin stitch, but I'm not going to go to the detail of satin stitch because then you're looking for that nice, flat, beautiful finish. I want to give myself a little bit of wriggle room because I might want to bring in some variegated, some over stitches. I might want to lay some French knots on top of that. But at the moment, I just want to get around this outer edge and get this little petal covered in stitches. Gee, when I started this video, I was going to be on the other side of this piece, but I've picked up this yarn. I think they call it feather yarn, don't they? That one's eyelash yarn, and the other one's feather yarn. That I have seen around still. Now, I'm not going to cover it completely in feather yarn. I just want a little bit of it, just to make that flower feel a little bit more interesting. Now, remember, we're painting our flowers with thread, and we're going to be, for example, let's put it into the artist world. Let's pretend we've got watercolors, we've got oils, we've got pastels, we've got crayons all sitting in front of us. And we're going to make that flower a little bit of everything. That's probably the best way I can describe this. Well, that's my interpretation of it anyway. It's just a little bit of everything. So I'm just wanting my flower petal to bend around in a curve there. So I'm actually going to jump forward and place a couple stitches over here at the new angle. Otherwise it's too hard to get that shape. So I'm just going to jump forward, lay down a couple stitches, might even jump forward again to get that guy at the right angle. And then I'll work my way back over that to layer it back in. I'll fill it in, so to speak. So now my little furthest back petal, he is stitched. So I don't need to worry about him now. And look, at the end of the day, we may not even see him by the time I get some layers of other things in there, but it's just easier to sort him out now because you never know, he might actually be very visible. Okay, so a couple more stitches and that little guy is sorted. That's a pretty pink, so I'm happy with that. Is there a card, a label on him? No. I found out the name of this fabric. It's a Davin stone fabric and it's called Flower Festive. It's still available. It comes in numerous colorways, but the flowers are the same, but the background changes. There's a blue, there's a cream, there's the hot pink, which is the one that I've got. I think there's a turquoisey coloured one. So there is a few in the range. Now, I'm just looking at this. I'm thinking I need another pink, just to break it up. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to end that off. Put that in. My excitement to get going. I didn't even pull the thread fully through. There's the knot. Oh my goodness, it's just so exciting. So what I'm thinking now is this softer pink. Yep. The only thing you do have to be concerned when you're selecting your threads is there's enough of a contrast between them. Let's say you're looking for 3 pinks for this flower, or even 4. You need to be quite bold in your difference in colours, because otherwise, when you stitch it, you're not going to notice it. And I think this is going to be one of those scenarios. So let's just put our little nose back into this pot. Is there a paler one there? What's that one there? Yeah, I think that's going to be better. Sorry, the camera's so close, it's probably quite obnoxious. So let's start again. This is the original one that I've already laid down. That was my next choice. Bit too close. I think I need to go something like that. So it's completely distinctively different. So let's just back it up a little bit. I've already got a mess. Like, seriously? Let's get a little bit of this. But once I work this out, I think I'll be able to then go to another flower. All right, so what I'm thinking now is I'm going to come along and the same thing again, stitch in the outer rim of this petal. So I've got a green little leaf poking through there. This stem will disappear because it'll get seed stitched all around it. Now you can also put 2 strands together of your crocheted cotton just to thicken up your thread, and it makes it a lot quicker too if you want to really move the project along. You can do 2 strands. Just thinking ahead here of the next stage, which will be that little vein of dark pink. That's where I want to bring in a little bit of this lacy looking yarn. So like I said, this stitching that I'm doing now may not even be seen due to the layers that are going to go in there. Having said that, I think I'll need to just trim him down a little bit, and I only want a little bit of it. I don't want to overpower the whole flower with that texture, but I do want to see this little rim of the petal as well. Now, when I was reviewing a week or so ago, I'm thinking ahead on stitching and I need to concentrate on what I'm saying. Susanna, Vintage Blend Studio. I was reviewing some of her fabric packs, and as I was going through them, I fell in love with a piece of fabric, and out of my brain came the project, Let's Celebrate the Seasons. Now, this piece here is really going to be a snapshot of what Celebrating the Seasons is going to be. On the 1st of September, I'm going to kick off this project, and I'm going to find a piece of fabric that is full of flowers that makes me feel like it's the season. Now, if you remember back to that video, and a lot of you have said that you're already on the hunt for some suitable fabrics, my first season is spring. I have got a couple pieces shortlisted. Winter is a definite. That's the piece that I absolutely fell in love with. Autumn is still up in the air. Now, in the meantime, Susanna from Vintage Blend Studio has put together some pieces, 4 pieces of fabric that she thinks blends with my winter. So she's going to send them up to me as possibles for the 4 seasons. I'm not 100% sure yet because I haven't seen them, and I am hunting through my stash as well to see if I think 2 of hers in the pack I really did like from the photos. Autumn. The jury is still out. She does have a piece. I have a piece, but I'm not convinced it's the right piece. So I'm still looking for autumn. Now, spring starts on the 1st of September in Australia, so that's the one I'm going to kick off with. If you are in the Northern Hemisphere, your first one will be autumn. So, but it's up to you. You can start at whatever season you like. And to be honest, if I can't find a spring that inspires me, I will be jumping straight into my winter piece, to be honest, because I know what it is and I love it. So I just thought I'd mention that you don't have to start on the season that it is on the 1st of September for you in the world. If you've got a piece of fabric that you absolutely adore and it's a definite, like my winter, I think it's still sitting at the end of the table, so I'll grab it in a second. These flowers here that I'm working on, to me, are very summerish. But I don't know, they could be spring too. See, it's really interesting when you start looking at colours and flower combinations. I've been on Pinterest and Googling mood boards that are spring inspired, mood boards that are summer inspired, and see if there's anything that sort of comes to mind. So yeah, it's a lot of fun just having think about your fabrics, what you could use and how you could, apply them to the project. Now I'm going to present my 4 panels on a rolling pin. Susanna has actually decided to join in as well, which is great. She is going to present hers in a smaller scale onto a vintage bobbin like we have in the past with snippet rolls and things like that. So her pieces, are going to be about so big. I'm not sure of the exact measurements, but they're a lot smaller. I believe she's going to even put together 4 pieces of fabric that match what I'm thinking of using as well in her store, but don't quote me on that. That may have already been spotted by some eagle eyes and sold out. But she has so much beautiful vintage fabrics that I'd say according to demand, she'll probably keep putting together what she feels is a great selection of spring, summer, autumn and winter. So just keep checking on her store, or if you did want her to do something for you and there was nothing there, maybe shoot her a message. She'd be more than happy to dive into her fabrics and see what she could put together for you. I can guarantee it. Make her pull it all out and then it's a nice big mess for her. Isn't that cheeky? She loves it. You can hear her, like when I'm on the phone to her and we start talking fabrics and that. Oh, I've got this. She sends me a photo. Oh, I've got this too. Oh, and sends me another photo. And all I can I can hear is fabrics coming out and piles being created, and oh, it's just hilarious. So back to the task at hand. What my plan is, I've got my needle here that's really fine, Reginald, and I'm thinking I'm going to just now have a go at stitching in this yarn. So let's get myself anchored, and I'm going to go for a bit of this dark stuff. I even don't mind that there's a little bit of black in it, but we'll just trim this bit out. I'm going to just catch that edge. So I'm going to concentrate here because I am working with a very sharp needle, and we all know what Reginald's like. The moment I don't pay him attention, he gets a little bit antsy. So my theory is we catch that edge into that crevice where those... Now for ease of work, I would stitch the whole thing in the thread first, because you imagine if you've got all these bits and pieces, your texture poking up everywhere, it is going to drive you nuts trying to get your needle and thread in there to do your stitching. So have a good think about where you would lay a piece of decorative, let's call it the decorative element. It could be lace, could be yarn, but you need to get this work done first. Get all your stitches in and then go, right, I'll put some here, some in here, maybe a little bit here, and then that's it. Don't go overboard with it because it could overpower your flower. And this piece here, I'm just going to stitch for your benefit so you can sort of see. Otherwise there'll be hours and hours of viewing here and that's just boring. But if I can do a little bit, and then I can go and do it, you'll know what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Okay, so now I'm going to try and bring that around so you can see the next lot of crocheted cotton stitching will be this petal here. So I'm just going to keep using my very fine needle and just putting a little stitch in there. Now you could use pink sewing cotton to do this, but I don't know. I like my old cream cotton. My stitch is so small, no one is even going to notice it. And if you do, I don't mind seeing the maker's mark. It's seeing where the maker went before me. For me, as someone who does this type of work, I love that because I'm like, how did they do that? I really like seeing the journey in stitching. Okay, so I feel like I've got that secure. Now I'll just end that off. Now you've got a couple choices here. You could consider that being too long and you want to just bring it back a bit, or you might like the laciness of that and leave it at that length. I'm thinking I'm going to trim it a little. So let's have a little look. Let's get Reginald squared away. And I'm going to trim the lace. That's not lace, yarn. So used to using lace. See, that's it there. I think it needs just a little bit off. Not much, but I sort of want to see the rest of the flower. So you can see now why I stitched those background petals first. So I'm just going to, just a little bit. I feel like a hairdresser now. And you can shape it accordingly. So I've gone a little bit smaller this side and slightly bigger this side. So that's the first layer of that yarn in that flower. See what I mean? So now I'd go and start working. Now, which were the two I used? I didn't use that, so I need to put it away. Those two. And just keep working your way through the flower. This little variegated piece here, just that bit there might be good in the center. So it's going to make this carnation feel like there's quite a few layers within it. So that's the plan with that. Now, where's my little, I need a little tray to put my bits in. That's a definite. And that pale pink, I think, let me zoom back up because otherwise I forget where I am. I think that pale pink here has potential in here around that little, see how they've got these little stamens, especially the inner edge. Oh, yeah. That inner edge for sure. And then maybe we go slightly darker for the outer edge. Maybe I only use a little bit of it on the bottom side. Yeah, see, I like that. I like just that little bit. I need to stitch that. Where's my Reginald? Come here, Reg. I'm putting the horse before the cart, mind you. In the centre, I would do beads. No, I'm not going to stitch it, for goodness sakes. Yes, I will. Will I? Yes, I will. I just have to. So I've decided I'm going to do just a portion of it in that. I think if I'd circumnavigated it completely, it might have looked too much and enclosed the center of the flower too much. So let me just get this Reginald under control and concentrate. Come on, Reggie. Be good. So one piece of yarn has gone and done two flowers because the tones are right. Reggie, where are you? So I guess if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're going to see yarns starting to creep into your stores too. Ours are in there now, of course, because we're in the middle of winter. So next time you're passing the yarn section, go for a meander down because you just never know what fibres you can pick up. And it's a really economical way of doing it. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I like the bottom only of it. I'm only going to do a portion of it because I think I would do a heap of pistol stitches in there. You know, the stitch with the knot at the top of it. And then in the center of the flower, maybe a cream bead. Let's keep this one very pastel. I could even do pistol stitches on the inner edge of this actual piece that I'm stitching on now. So if this fabric catches your eye, this Flower Festival, I don't think it's Devonport, it's Devonstone. Devonport is a city in Australia, Tasmania. It's Devonstone. Gosh, is it? It is. So if this combination of flowers catches your eye and you think it could be your spring, it is available on Etsy. It's available at most fabric stores that I saw around me. So there's, oh, see how that is, there's lash going this way and then it's twisted and there's lash going up. Oh, I like that. I'm going to let that be, and I'm going to see it's twisted. Oh my goodness, I tell you, here comes Fudge. It's amazing what fibres and textures. Oh, look, that looks like I know what I'm doing, and that is a pure accident. Fudgy. He's been out lying in the sun and now he's back to announce his arrival. Fudge. Hasn't he settled into being #1 cat in the house? He always thought he was, but he wasn't. Old Casper would let him get away with mischief and then give him a walloping, and whenever they passed each other, there was always a walloping involved. I wouldn't say they loved each other, but now he is like head kitty. Fudgy, he's looking for me. He's gone to the TV room. He does follow me around a lot more than he used to. Having said that, the first few days after we lost Casper, he was on me like glue. Very much. I wonder where I take that. I think I'll end it there, guys. And I might give myself a little extra length, because if I turn that under, it sort of makes those fibres shoot out in another direction, and I like that. Yeah, so the first few days he was like on me all the time, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be a very needy cat. And then suddenly, nah, back to normal. Eat his dinner, off to his bed, sleep for a few hours, come back, meow, 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 top up on the food, maybe a bit of lap time, then back to bed. Like, it was sort of back to normal, which was great. So, but he does get fussed a lot. I think it's because I'm, you know, #1 cat. I worry about him, but I think he's okay. He's always been a bit of an independent lad. He's not a sookie cat at all. Could only wish for a sookie cat that loved being cuddled and carried around, but he was never like that. He is not like that. There we go. I love how that fibre has twizzled around on me. So there you go. Don't be afraid to twist your fibres. Instead of just laying it flat like an eyelash, twist it a bit, like send it in another direction, kink it. I think that helps you get that more organic feel. Now the centre in there, I think, will be some beads. And I'm thinking along the lines of probably my favourite, the calico coloured beads. I think they'll look pretty in there, just to get rid of that yellow. And then around the top of the beads, I might make them quite... See, now I've got Reginald there ready. Let's bring... Oh, Reg, you've dropped your thread, son. do is stay in the yellow for now, and then I might get a variegated thread for the pistol stitch. But these are very big beads, so I might need to get his little brother, which is this one. This is a 6mm, he's a 9mm, and then use some of the little guys just to soften the edge. Now you can see how Reginald's thread has just caught that fibres, so that's why you do all of your stitching and your beading before you put in your fancy little fibrous things like this. But you know, I'm break the rules. So yeah, that will be a combination of the big guys, because it's big flower, so I think it can handle it. But I will stitch little fellows in around it just to sort of soften it. Now I picked up a variegated thread, well it fell out of the container, and that there might be good for the stamens, but it might be too fine too, so I will have a little play. There's another variegated here, there we go, that's better. I reckon that'll be good. That will be pistol stitch in there, or here's a thought, maybe instead of doing more pink and it becoming very pinky pink, I go back to the old cream thread, or I could even find a gold, go completely different. See, now I'm popping in just a few little ones, just softens the edge, makes it more interesting. You could even work buttons into the center of your flowers. So I guess this piece is a really good way of showing you what I'll be doing on the seasonal piece. So if this is something you want to have a play with, at least you'll know, right, the girl's going to be wanting me to do random textures, random beads, all within my flowers. So it gives you a little bit more time to sort of have a think about it. And I would get a small project box, because at the end of the day, it's only one piece of fabric. I would get a small project box for each season and just start popping in there threads that you think would match, beads that you think would match. Pop in some lace, some crocheted elements. You don't need a lot because it's just a little project. So it might be just cut a piece off of something and pop it in the box. That's what I'm going to start to do. Just building up an ideas box for each piece. Now I'm a real fan of these little briefcase type boxes. I get them from not Spotlight, Officeworks in Australia. So it's like a stationery store for businesses and offices, you know. And I really like them because they're not too big, so it stops me from putting too much stuff in a box. And I can then pop a label on the front of the box. How are we going for time? Look at the time, for goodness sakes. So, first of all, let's just get back to these flowers because I want some work to do. I think I'm confident enough that I can carry on with the carnation. I think you'll get the general gist of what I'm going to do there, just layers of prettiness. This big guy here, I'm pretty sure I could work him. This little guy here might come back in the next video and we'll work on something for him and this little fellow. So I can do this and I can do the carnation, and the leaves, I'm just going to find a wool and lay down wool stitches and then go over the top of it with a crochet cotton that has that little bit of a shine about it. So it'll give me a bit of quite a chunky leaf, but then the veins can be in the can you hear fudge? The veins will be in a, you know, a shinier sort of feel, that pearl cotton. Oh, he wants me to stop what I'm doing, move into the lounge room so he can jump on my lap. He was a bit annoyed with me last night because this piece is a little bit big and I'm sitting there doing seed stitch, and he kept coming and going, and he'd look at me. He'd look me right in the eye to say, put down that piece. I want to sleep here. So I'd put it to one side, let him settle down. He was just getting dozy, and then I'd pull it back out. And as soon as the edge of it touched him, he was gone. He was like, nope, I told you, I don't want it. Blooming cats, I tell you. All right, so as we're coming to the end of this video, I want to show you two things, but I think I need to stop beading. Let's just put Reginald up here. As for this flower, let's focus on that, because I think what I want to do is lay some lace into it. So let me just grab my bucket of lace here and see if there's something. So I'm looking for something fine that can just be a bit of texture within the stitches. So I'll stitch it all and then find something that can pop up through it, just a bit of random. I don't mind that. I like how it gives me that shape. So it'll be the same principle. Yeah, I like that one. It'll be the same principle as the eyelash yarn, where I'll lay down my stitches behind, get all that looking good, because if someone peels back the lace, they'll see it. But then I will stitch in this crevice here some random pops of lace just to make it feel a little bit more interesting. Then I think I'll lay down in the variegated cotton, but I don't know, it might be a plain one, it might be a gold one. This might be too much for it. That'd be my only decision. So we'll see. I think once I get the whole of that stitched, the lace then cut in, and I'm talking about just little snippets of lace. Maybe take that hard edge off, so I've just got that, just tiny, and then stitch it in, and then stitch your, I take it right to the center. I should come this side. Where's the pin? Bring it right in, say, to there, and then pistol stitch out to it. So it's just like a little pop of lace, and then maybe another one here and another one next to it, just a little bit, just to help add. I could even put a couple on the exterior of that leaf where I cut down. Yeah, I think I'll get rid of that hard edge and use the little flower as my, so then I'm not worried about that being hidden. I've got a pretty little end already. I might just take that bit off. There we go, that's better. And then just stitch it in amongst it. So it'll build it all up. Yep, happy with that. That lace will work. I think that's probably enough to keep me moving along. That flower and the carnation and the leaf. I'm thinking, put that needle there. Now, before we go, the project box that I'm talking about is, where's the project box that I'm talking about? That's these guys. So this one's got Honey Bear's little project in it. Let me zoom up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm sure these are worldwide. They come with that. They open up. You've got a little handle. It's nearly like a mini briefcase. It's the size of an A4 page. In Australia, that's our standard letter, you know, white piece of paper you put in your printer. It's probably about an inch or so thick, inch and a half thick, which is enough. So what I'd recommend is when you find the fabric you want for your season, pop it in a box and then start popping in there laces, threads, sequins, you know, just to sort of get you started. So let me show you my winter again. So that's my winter. Okay. Susanna, like I said, has created a pack of 4 fabrics she thinks would work with winter. And in there is another winter. And it's got the flowers coming off the top here. And these stripes are down here. I rather like it as well. So whether this becomes the piece or I flip to the other winter, same fabric, just a different orientation. But Susanna, she's doing a small version, so she could potentially, where's a ruler? She could potentially just take this bit like that, just this little vignette, and that could be winter. And that then would fit really well on a bobbin, antique bobbin. Do I have one to show you? I'm sure you all know what I mean. Hang on one second. All right, one of those. So Susanna's will be little vignettes. And could you imagine for the next 3 years, every season, you pick another fabric? So this could go on for quite some time, and you would have then a piece that is up to 1 meter long, and as you roll through your seasons, there's winter, autumn, summer, spring, and then around you go again. Because fabrics, they come into our world randomly, and often, you know, you've got to find a home for them because otherwise they go into the stash. So you can create a snippet roll. Now this is one I did back when Anne Brooks was doing snippet rolls, 2020. Could you imagine, you know, each little pocket is a season, and then you do it again and you do it again, and you've got, you know, 3 months to stitch it in. So time-wise, it's actually really achievable. So that's the story so far with the Let's Celebrate the Seasons. So if you do wish to stitch along, I'm definitely doing it. I'm just on the hunt for fabrics, which is super fun. Gosh, you could even get, oh gosh, I'm going off on all these tangents. Say you got a piece that is classic winter for you. You might this year cut out this guy. The next year, you might then take this guy out. And then the next year after that, you might do this guy. So one piece of fabric could literally be all your seasons for the next 3 years. Gosh. Anyway. Now, the only other thing I wanted to mention is at the moment, I'm stitching it as it is. I'm not going to cut it in any way and build on it like this piece. What I will be doing is embellishing within the petals, so laces and textures and goodness knows what. For example, laces will be going into it. Now, if you have a fabric like this guy, let me go grab that. Oh gosh, guys. Remember I said it was called Flower Festive? That's this one. So let's say you go to your stash and you don't have a piece of fabric that just has this cluster already to go. You may need to create your cluster. So you find your favourite fabric and you then go and fussy cut out some of the elements from it and you piece together whatever it is you're wanting to do. And then you can start looking at bringing some birds in and some other pieces. So you might go down more of this track than what I'm going to be doing. So just a bit of a thought when you start planning your piece. All right, that's enough rambling from me. I will head off, work on these two flowers and this guy. I think this little fellow here, and he pops up here and here. If I don't get back to you, I think all I'm going to do is probably go through my wools so that they're thick and do a bit of a wool flower there. Yeah, I think I will. Either way, they'll be quite chunky because they're only little. See how they're so tiny. But I want them to have a bit of a presence. So I've already made his little center really chunky. So I really need to make him quite thick. So I have a feeling I'll go looking for some wool. What's in my pink container? I just spotted. Yeah, that's the wrong color. I think I need something thicker. I'll find something. Not a problem. And then I can always come back over the wool with something like that that has that shine in it, just to sort of blend it back into this little piece. All right, guys, that's it. I think I just wanted to touch base on this so I could keep going, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about the seasons because I'm getting a few questions, and I thought, oh, I'll throw some more ideas out that might just send you off on your way. Jeez, that's come up really pretty. I like how it catches the light. All right, I better go. Fudge is getting antsy. He wants some lap time, which is fair enough. All right, guys, have a lovely day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.